It wasn't sudden, not like a slap to the face or a huge fight that left us in ruins. It was small things, little cracks that I tried to ignore, telling myself it was just a phase, that we were fine. Like the way Kelly stopped asking how my day went. It wasn't even that she stopped caring, I told myself. It was just that she was busy. Work had been draining for both of us. She had late meetings, early mornings, all that. So, when she didn't ask, I figured maybe she was just tired. No big deal. I let it go. I remember one night, though, we were sitting at the dinner table, and I tried to hold her hand. Just a simple, familiar gesture. But she pulled it away, like it burned her. Are you okay? I asked, trying to keep the smile on my face. She didn't look up from her plate. Yeah, I'm fine. But she wasn't. I could feel it, like the tension in the air had thickened somehow. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, but I told myself I was just being paranoid. Just a phase. Days passed, and the distance only grew. She stopped smiling at me in the mornings, stopped joking around like she used to. I found myself walking on eggshells, unsure of what I might say or do to provoke her. Kelly, I said one night as she scrolled through her phone, not even acknowledging me sitting right next to her on the couch. What's going on with us? She didn't even look up. Nothing. But I knew there was something. It wasn't the same. It was like she was a million miles away, and I was just a ghost in her world. It hurt more than I'd like to admit, but I kept pushing it down, thinking it was just a rough patch. I miss you, I whispered one night, trying to reach her. She didn't flinch or look at me. Instead, she simply sighed, her eyes still locked on the screen. It's not that big of a deal, Aaron. You're overthinking. But something inside me snapped then. Maybe it was the way she said my name, flat and distant. Maybe it was the way she didn't even care enough to look at me. I didn't argue. What was there to say? She was shutting me out, and I didn't know why. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. I wanted to make breakfast, something nice to break the silence between us. She walked into the kitchen, her eyes avoiding mine. I could feel the coldness in the room, and I hated it. You want some coffee? I asked, trying to sound casual. No, I'm fine, she said, barely meeting my eyes. I wanted to say more, but I bit my tongue. What good would it do? She'd just brush me off like she always did. I sat down with my own coffee, staring at the steam rising from the cup, trying to make sense of it all. We had been fine. Hell, we had been great, right? So, why did everything feel so wrong now? Is something going on at work? I asked after a beat, feeling like I had to say something. No, she answered quickly, too quickly. I'm just tired, okay? But I knew that wasn't it. I wasn't an idiot. Something was off, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I thought back to the way she pulled her hand away from mine, how she didn't seem to care when I tried to get her attention. It wasn't normal. Okay, I said quietly, trying to hide the hurt in my voice. I just wanted to make sure everything was all right. I'm fine, she muttered, and that was it. The conversation ended there. But it didn't feel fine. I didn't feel fine. Every day felt like I was losing her bit by bit, and I didn't know how to stop it. Was it me? Had I done something wrong? Was I that easy to forget? I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal anymore. The cracks were there, And no matter how hard I tried to convince myself it was just a phase, deep down, I knew something had changed, and I couldn't ignore it much longer. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was coming. All I knew was that I was losing her, and I was scared to face the truth of why. It was a normal Tuesday. At least, I wanted to tell myself that. I was in the living room, flipping through some old papers I'd meant to sort out months ago, and that's when I saw it, a piece of paper sticking out from under the couch cushion, a receipt, just a normal receipt, or so I thought. I picked it up, crinkled from being jammed between the couch cushions. It was from a hotel, one I knew we hadn't visited in years. In fact, we had never gone to that part of the city. I stared at the date. Last weekend. My heart started to pound. I glanced at Kelly, who was in the kitchen, humming something under her breath. I felt my hands shake as I read the name on the receipt, a name I didn't recognize, a name that wasn't hers. I wanted to scream. I wanted to hurl the damn paper across the room, demand answers, but I didn't. Instead, I stuffed the receipt into my pocket and pretended everything was fine. Hey, Kelly, I called out, trying to sound casual. She walked in, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Yeah? I was just going through some stuff in the living room. Found this. I pulled the receipt out of my pocket slowly, watching her face as I did. She looked at it briefly, then shrugged. I don't know. It's probably an old one. From work or something. I blinked, the words burning my throat. Why would you be at a hotel last weekend, Kelly? We were together. Her face froze for a second, just long enough for me to catch it. But then she recovered. I don't know, Aaron. Maybe I left it in the wrong pocket or something. It doesn't mean anything. I didn't say anything. My heart was in my throat, but I forced myself to act normal, to pretend this wasn't what it was. Right, I said, my voice cold, and I turned away. Just checking. I spent the next few hours in a fog, my mind racing, replaying that moment. How easily she had dismissed it, like it was nothing, like I was the crazy one for asking. The doubt was still there, simmering, but I couldn't shake the sick feeling in my stomach. It felt like a punch I hadn't fully absorbed yet. Later that night, after dinner, I sat at the kitchen table watching Kelly laugh at something on her phone. She seemed so casual, like everything was fine, like I was imagining things, but I wasn't. I opened the drawer in the kitchen and pulled out my phone. I couldn't stop myself. I searched for the name on that receipt, and there it was, an address, a name, and even more, texts. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I found something. A message from a contact saved under a name that wasn't hers. I'll be there at 8 tonight. Don't forget the wine this time. My pulse raced. I stared at it for what felt like hours, but it had probably been just a few seconds. The words were clear. The context was even clearer. And it was obvious now. I wasn't imagining anything. The world tilted beneath me. My heart beat so loudly, I could hear it in my ears. She had been lying to me. She had been somewhere else, with someone else. But I didn't confront her. Not then. Not yet. I shoved my phone into my pocket, suddenly numb. The last thing I wanted was to show her how badly I was hurting. I wasn't ready to lose everything just yet. Everything okay? Kelly asked, her voice too calm. She looked up at me, but I didn't meet her eyes. Instead, I stared at the table. Yeah, I said, my voice flat. Just tired, I guess. She didn't press, and I was grateful for that, but it didn't change anything. The evidence was there. I wasn't imagining things. The betrayal had already happened, and now I had to figure out what to do next. I had a million questions, but I couldn't ask them. Not yet. If I confronted her now, she would lie. She would spin some story, and I'd end up questioning myself again, wondering if I was just overreacting. I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to beg for the truth, so I buried it, shoved it deep down, and pretended that everything was fine. I smiled when she smiled, laughed when she laughed, and acted like I hadn't just uncovered the truth that was eating me alive. But I knew something was wrong. And even though I wasn't ready to face it, it was already too late. The trust was shattered, and I was drowning in the lies. I had the words, I had the proof, but when the time came to say them, to face her, I couldn't. Kelly was sitting on the couch, her legs crossed, scrolling through her phone like she had no care in the world. I watched her, my heart hammering in my chest, everything inside me screaming to ask her, to demand the truth. But every time I opened my mouth, the words felt like they were choking me. Aaron, what's up? Her voice pulled me from my thoughts. She didn't even look up from her phone. I took a deep breath. We need to talk. She didn't flinch. She didn't even set her phone down. About what? About you, Kelly. About everything. My voice came out rougher than I intended. I felt the anger rising, the frustration that had been building for days, but I didn't know how to get it out. She finally glanced up, her eyes narrowing slightly. What are you talking about? I don't know what you're on about, but you're making this sound like a big deal when it's not. I felt my pulse quicken. The hotel receipt, the texts. Who is he? She blinked, looking at me for a second, then went right back to her phone. I already told you, Aaron. You're overreacting. There's nothing going on. I stood there, trying to keep my cool, but it was slipping. You think I'm an idiot? I'm not dumb, Kelly. I saw it. I know what's going on. She sighed, setting the phone down with exaggerated slowness. You really need to stop making up stories in your head. You're stressing yourself out over nothing. I felt the walls closing in. It's not nothing, Kelly. It's not. I know something's wrong. She stood up then, brushing past me, and I felt a wave of coldness wash over me. She was calm, too calm. Honestly, Aaron, you're being ridiculous. Her voice was casual, but there was an edge to it. You're just mad because I've been busy. I told you I've got deadlines. This is nothing, okay? It hit me then. The way she said it, like it was nothing, like I was the one blowing it out of proportion, like I was the crazy one. My stomach twisted in knots. Why are you doing this? I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. Why lie to me? She looked at me like I was the one causing all the trouble. I'm not lying. You're the one who's got a problem with everything. What do you want me to say? I'm tired, Aaron. I don't have the energy to deal with your paranoia. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the receipts in her face, show her the messages I had found, but the words stuck in my throat. What would it even do? She wouldn't admit it. She never would, I'm not paranoid, I said quietly, my throat tight. I just want the truth. She shook her head, her eyes softening, but it didn't reach her voice. The truth is, you're overthinking this. I'm just tired, okay? Can you not just trust me for once? Please? I couldn't even answer her. The way she looked at me, like I was crazy. The way she tried to make me believe that nothing was wrong. It was too much. I felt like I was losing my mind. I trust you, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I just, I don't know anymore. Kelly took a step back, her face twisting in what I could only call pity. Aaron, you're acting like this is some big deal. It's not. Stop stressing. I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing came out. Instead, I just stood there, frozen, watching her walk away. My mind was a mess. I didn't know whether to follow her or stay where I was, trapped in this overwhelming sense of confusion and helplessness. I stayed. She disappeared into the bedroom without another word, and I stayed in the living room, staring at the spot where she had stood. I didn't know what to do. I had the proof. I had all the signs that something was wrong, but she made me feel like it was all in my head. I couldn't tell if I was being gaslighted or if I was just losing my grip on reality. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe it was me. Maybe I was the one who couldn't see the truth. Was I overreacting? Was I imagining all this? I thought I knew her. I thought I knew us. But the more I tried to figure it out, the less certain I became. All I had now was doubt, and I hated it. But I wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet. I didn't know how, and maybe that was the problem. I wasn't ready to face the truth, because the truth might break me. I had to know more. I had to confront her again. But something inside me was terrified that if I did, I might lose everything. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The hotel receipt, the messages, the way she dismissed everything like it was nothing. It was like a knot in my stomach that kept tightening every time I closed my eyes. I spent hours searching. Every night after she went to bed, I'd dig through her things, her phone, her emails, anything I could find. The more I searched, the more I found. A text here, a missed call there. But every time I thought I was close to the truth, I'd catch myself, wondering if I was just imagining it. Why are you looking at my phone? Kelly's voice broke through my thoughts one night. I looked up, startled. She was standing in the doorway of the bedroom, her arms crossed. I, uh, I just thought I lost something, I muttered. Shoving the phone back into my pocket, she narrowed her eyes. Don't lie. What's going on with you? I didn't know how to answer. The words were stuck. I didn't want to lie, but I didn't want to tell her what I had found either. So I just shook my head. Nothing. Just tired. She looked at me for a moment longer, her expression unreadable, before turning away. Whatever. I stared at her retreating figure, my chest tight with frustration. I had to know the truth. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, but I also couldn't shake the feeling that if I confronted her now, I'd lose everything. It wasn't just the affair. It was everything. The trust, the love, the life we had built together. I tried to focus on work the next day, but it was impossible. My mind kept drifting back to her, what she was doing, who she was talking to, where she was when she wasn't with me. Every little thing she did now felt like a clue, like a part of a puzzle I couldn't solve. I was so lost in my own thoughts that I barely heard my coworker talking to me. Are you listening, Aaron? He asked, waving his hand in front of my face. I snapped back to reality. Yeah, sorry. Just not feeling great. He frowned. You okay, man? You've been out of it for days. I'm fine, I said, but it didn't sound convincing. I could feel the walls closing in on me, my work slipping, my relationships fraying. Later that night, Kelly came home late again. The same routine. She walked in, barely acknowledging me, and went straight to the bedroom. It was like I wasn't even there anymore. Kelly, I called out, my voice barely a whisper. She didn't answer. I stood there, in the middle of the living room, feeling like I was suffocating. I had to do something. I had to know. But I couldn't bring myself to confront her again. I couldn't risk it. So I did what I always did. I waited. I started to lose myself in the search for answers. I scrolled through her texts at night. I checked her social media accounts. I even memorized the pattern of her work schedule, convinced I could catch her in a lie. The obsession consumed me. I couldn't focus on anything else. I hadn't noticed how much I was slipping until it was too late. My friends started to pull away. My boss was frustrated with my performance, and I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without feeling disgusted. What had I become? What had she turned me into? One evening, I was sitting in the kitchen trying to distract myself with work when Kelly walked in. You've been staring at that same email for over an hour, she said, her voice laced with something I couldn't quite place. I'm just trying to finish this, I muttered, not looking up. She leaned against the counter, her arms folded. You know, you've been acting weird lately. You've been all over the place. What's really going on? I didn't want to tell her the truth. I couldn't. But something about the way she said it made me snap. Why are you doing this? I finally asked, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and hurt. Why do you keep pushing me away? Kelly didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at me like I was the one who had lost it. You're being paranoid, Aaron. You need to relax. I'm just busy, okay? You're making a big deal out of nothing. I stood up, pushing my chair back with a force that made it scrape against the floor. A big deal? You're telling me this is nothing? She looked at me, unblinking, before turning to leave the room. I'm going to bed. We can talk about this tomorrow, when you're not so worked up. I stood there, the words echoing in my head. We can talk about this tomorrow. But I knew, deep down, that she would just deny everything again. I couldn't take it anymore. I had lost her, hadn't I? But I couldn't bring myself to admit it. Not yet. So I kept searching. I kept digging, even though I knew it was killing me. And every time I thought I might find something, I just kept falling deeper into the hole I had dug for myself. The walls were closing in faster than I could crawl out. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I had now was the truth I couldn't face. I knew I shouldn't have gone through her things again, but I couldn't stop. The obsession had taken hold of me, twisting me inside out. I felt like I was suffocating, and the only way to breathe was to find the truth, even though I knew it would break me. I was standing in the kitchen when I saw it. Her laptop was open, left on the kitchen counter. her browser still up. I knew I shouldn't, but my hands moved on their own, and before I could talk myself out of it, I clicked the open tab. There it was, an email thread. The subject line was innocuous enough. Plans for the weekend. I froze. My heart stopped for a beat. The first email was from a name I didn't recognize. Someone called Evan. The message was casual, like they were friends. Looking forward to seeing you Saturday. I'll be there around 8. Don't forget the wine. Please. I couldn't breathe. It felt like the walls were closing in on me. I read it again, forcing my mind to wrap around it. But the reality of it was suffocating. My mind raced. Was I reading this wrong? Maybe this wasn't what I thought it was. Maybe it was some misunderstanding. But then I scrolled down to the next message. I needed that. You have no idea. I felt my stomach churn. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, and I felt my knees weaken. I didn't even notice when I sank into the chair at the table. It felt like everything around me was spinning out of control. I had to know more. I had to be sure. I kept scrolling. There was a photo attached to the next message. I clicked it, and my heart dropped. It was a picture of her, Kelly, and a man, Evan, I assumed, standing behind her. They were in a hotel room. She was smiling, wearing the necklace I gave her last anniversary. He was shirtless, his arms around her waist, holding her like it was the most natural thing in the world. It was like a slap to the face. I could see the necklace so clearly, the one I had picked out for her, the one that symbolized everything I thought we were. I had no idea how long I sat there, staring at the screen. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the laptop. Everything felt so surreal. It was happening. This was real. She had been lying to me this whole time, and I had ignored it, convinced myself it was just a phase, that I was imagining things. But now, it was undeniable. I couldn't process it. The grief and anger tore through me at once. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room and shatter everything. But what would that do? What good would that do me? I closed the laptop slowly, my fingers numb against the keys. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was drowning. How had I let this happen? How had I been so blind, so stupid? I thought back to everything, our conversations, our plans, our life together, and now it all felt like a lie, a charade. I heard Kelly moving around in the bedroom, but I couldn't bring myself to face her. I wasn't ready. Not yet. I wasn't ready to lose everything. She walked into the kitchen a few minutes later, her expression unreadable when she saw me sitting there, the laptop closed in front of me. What's wrong? She asked, her voice too casual, too distant. I couldn't answer. I couldn't say the words. Instead, I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. How long, Kelly? The question came out before I even realized I was asking it. My voice cracked, the pain cutting through me in waves. She looked at me, her eyes darting to the laptop and back to me. But she didn't say anything, just stood there, frozen. How long have you been seeing him? I asked again, quieter this time. But the silence between us felt deafening. She didn't say anything for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she sighed, as if it was a burden she had to admit, but she wasn't sorry for it. It doesn't matter, Aaron. It's over now. My chest tightened. It's over? You're just done with me, aren't you? I barely recognized my own voice. It was thick with emotion, full of disbelief and heartbreak. Don't make this about you, she snapped. You've been pushing me away for months. This was inevitable. I shook my head, the anger rising within me. I never pushed you away. I loved you. I still love you. She let out a short, humorless laugh. Love? Don't make me laugh. You don't know what love is, Aaron. You never did. Her words hit harder than I could have prepared for. I felt the sting of betrayal deep inside me, like a wound that wouldn't heal. I don't know what love is, I repeated, barely able to form the words. I was starting to lose control, but it didn't matter. You're the one who's been lying to me this whole time. You're the one who threw everything away. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The silence said everything. I stood there, staring at her, and suddenly everything felt so clear, so painfully clear. I wasn't the one who had broken this. I hadn't been the one to betray us. She had. I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore, whether I wanted to scream, cry, or just walk away. But what I knew for sure was that nothing would ever be the same again. I looked at her one last time, the weight of everything between us too much to bear. I don't know who you are anymore, I said, my voice small, cracked, and then, without another word, I turned and walked out of the room. I couldn't stay there, not with her, not in that moment. I had to leave, because if I stayed, I might lose myself too. I could feel it building inside me, a pressure that had been growing for months, and I couldn't hold it in anymore. The truth was out, but I hadn't been able to truly face it, to truly confront her, until now. I found her sitting in the living room, her back to me, staring at her phone like it was the most important thing in the world. She didn't even acknowledge my presence. I stood there for a few moments, my heart thumping in my chest, knowing that this was the moment, the one where everything would either fall apart or I would finally get some semblance of control back. I didn't wait any longer. Kelly, we need to talk. She didn't look up. About what, Aaron? My voice cracked, and I hated myself for it. About us. About you. About everything. Finally, she turned to face me, her expression blank, her eyes distant. I don't know what you want me to say, Aaron. We've been through this. I took a deep breath. I couldn't back down now. No, we haven't been through this. You've been lying to me for months. You've been seeing someone else. I know about Evan. I saw the messages, the photo. I know. Her eyes flashed with something. Was it guilt? But she quickly masked it with that same cold, detached look. So what? You think I'm some kind of monster? I felt a wave of anger wash over me. You don't get to turn this around on me, Kelly. You're the one who's been lying. You're the one who's been cheating. And now you're acting like it's nothing. She stood up slowly, as if this conversation didn't matter to her at all. It wasn't like that, Aaron. You don't understand. It wasn't planned, okay? It just happened. I could feel my fists clenching at my sides. It just happened? I repeated, my voice rising. You've been seeing him for months, Kelly. Don't tell me it just happened. You made a choice. Her face hardened, and for the first time, I saw something close to frustration in her eyes. And what do you want me to say, huh? Do you want me to apologize? Do you want me to beg for your forgiveness? I've been miserable too, you know. I've been trying to get your attention for months, and you've just been absent. You think I wanted this? The words hit me like a slap. I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing came out. I felt like I was suffocating. I didn't, I didn't know, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know I was losing you. She crossed her arms and looked at me like I was the one to blame. You didn't even notice, did you? You never saw it, Aaron. You were too busy with your own life to see me falling apart. You never looked at me anymore. I took a step forward, the desperation rising in my chest. I didn't know what was happening, Kelly. You pushed me away, but I thought it was just stress, or I thought it was a phase. I thought we'd be okay. She shook her head, her voice cold. Well, we're not, and we're never going to be again. That hit harder than anything else she could have said. I felt my throat tighten, like I couldn't breathe anymore. So what? This is it? You're just done with me? My voice cracked again, and I hated myself for it. She didn't flinch. I'm not done with you. I'm done with pretending that everything's fine when it isn't. I'm done pretending we're happy when we're not. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something, anything, to make her see what she had done to me. You can't just decide that. We built this life together, Kelly. You can't just walk away from everything. She met my gaze, and there was something in her eyes. Was it regret? But it was gone too quickly. I've been trying to tell you for months, Aaron, but you never listened. I can't keep fighting for something you don't care about. It was like a punch to the gut. I didn't care about you. I didn't care about us. My voice shook with anger, but also with confusion. Is that what you really think? I don't know what you care about anymore, she said, her voice trembling for the first time. I don't know if I can trust you anymore either. This isn't just about me, Aaron. It's about us. And I don't think we can fix it. The words stung. I couldn't believe it. This wasn't the woman I married. This wasn't the woman who once held my hand and told me she loved me every night. So that's it? You've made up your mind, and I'm just supposed to accept it? She looked at me, her face softening just slightly. I'm not asking you to accept it. I'm asking you to understand that I can't keep living like this. I can't keep pretending. My mind was spinning. My heart was breaking. Everything inside me wanted to fight, to demand more answers, to make her see what she was doing to me. But I knew deep down that it wouldn't change anything. She had already made her decision. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, the words coming out like ash in my mouth. But I know I can't keep living like this either. She didn't respond, just turned and walked away. I stood there, frozen, torn between what I wanted and what I knew had to happen. I could keep fighting for something that was already lost, or I could walk away and finally find peace. I wasn't sure what the right choice was, but standing there, with everything falling apart around me, I realized one thing. I was done surviving. I was done trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed. I wasn't sure how to walk away, but I knew I had to, for me, for my own sanity, for my own healing. And I took the first step. I stood there, alone in the living room, the silence pressing in on me like a weight I couldn't escape. The conversation with Kelly echoed in my mind over and over again. I had finally heard the truth, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it. It wasn't anger that consumed me anymore. It was something colder, something that made my chest tighten with a strange kind of resolve. I couldn't let her get away with it. I couldn't let her rewrite this narrative, make me the villain in her twisted version of events. She had made her choice, and now it was time for me to make mine. I grabbed my phone, and the first person I called was Ryan. He had been through this before. He knew what this kind of pain felt like. The voice on the other end of the line was calm, like he had expected this call. Ryan, I need your help, I said, my voice strained, but firm. I knew this was coming, he replied, the steady tone of his voice making me feel like maybe I wasn't as crazy as I thought. What do you need? I don't know where to start. I need to take control of this. I'm not going to let her do this to me anymore, not without facing the consequences. Ryan paused. Are you sure? You know, once you do this, there's no turning back. I know, but I'm done being the guy who just gets walked on. I've had enough. I could almost hear the nod in his voice. All right then. What's the plan? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I need to expose her. I need everyone to know what she's done. I'm not going to sit in the shadows anymore. I want to confront Evan. I want him to know that he's not going to get away with this. And if Kelly thinks she can lie and manipulate her way out of this, she's wrong. I'm taking control of my own story. Ryan was quiet for a moment, and then he spoke slowly, carefully. I get it, but you need to be sure about this. It's not just about the affair. It's about everything. Your dignity, your self-respect. If you do this, it's for you, not for her. I gripped my phone tighter. I didn't need Ryan to tell me that. I had already made up my mind. I'm doing it, Ryan. I'm not going to let her walk away like nothing happened. All right, he said again, but this time there was something softer in his voice. Let me know what you need. I'm with you. After I hung up, I sat in the stillness for a while, letting the weight of my decision sink in. It was strange. I had never really thought about revenge before. I had always been the one to back down, to forgive, to try to fix things. But this felt different. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my sense of self. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of her lies. I stood up, my mind racing with possibilities. I knew what I had to do. The first step was confronting Evan. He needed to know that his actions had consequences. He couldn't just waltz in and take what wasn't his, not without facing the truth. But it wasn't just about him. It was about Kelly, too. She needed to understand that this wasn't something she could brush under the rug. She had to face what she had done, what we had lost because of her choices, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate the situation any longer. I pulled up Evan's number. It was right there in her phone, just one of the many pieces of the puzzle I had been piecing together over the past few weeks. I stared at it for a long moment, my fingers hovering over the call button. I knew I should confront him, but a part of me hesitated. What would I even say? How would I even begin to address the betrayal that had shattered everything I thought I knew? I took a deep breath and dialed his number. It rang twice before he picked up. Hello? His voice was casual, too casual for someone who had been involved with my wife. My pulse quickened, but I kept my voice steady. Evan? Yeah, who's this? This is Aaron. The words sounded foreign coming out of my mouth. I felt like I had to remind myself that I was still in control of this conversation. I'm Kelly's husband. There was a moment of silence on the other end. I could almost hear him shifting, his discomfort seeping through the phone. Look, man, I don't know what you think this is. No, I cut him off, my voice calm but sharp. You don't get to explain this away. You're not getting off that easy. I know about you and Kelly. He was quiet for a beat, and then his voice became defensive. Look, I didn't mean to hurt you. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Save it, I snapped. I don't want your excuses. I want you to know what you've done. You don't just get to walk away from this like nothing happened. There are consequences to your actions. I didn't mean for it to get out of hand, he said, his voice becoming more and more nervous. I felt a strange satisfaction at his discomfort. He was finally realizing that I wasn't the one who had been fooled. It's too late for apologies. Evan, you've already done the damage. I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. I'm not going to let Kelly manipulate me anymore. I'm going to tell everyone. I'm going to expose you, her, and everything you two did behind my back. I heard him curse under his breath, but I didn't let it faze me. I had already decided. It was time to stop pretending, to stop feeling sorry for myself. I had been the one left in the dark for so long. It was my turn to take control. I'll deal with this, I said, my voice hard now. But don't think for a second that you're walking away from this unscathed. I hung up before he could respond, my heart pounding, but for the first time in weeks, I felt something like peace. The decision had been made. I wasn't running away anymore. I wasn't hiding. I was ready to fight. I knew what had to be done. It wasn't enough to just confront Evan or Kelly. I had to take this to the people who mattered, the ones who needed to see her for who she really was. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I wasn't going to hide anymore, and neither was she. I started with the easiest, most obvious choice, Kelly's mother. I picked up the phone and dialed the number I had memorized since childhood. It rang, and when her mother picked up, I could hear the usual cheerfulness in her voice. Hello? Hi, it's Aaron. There was a pause, and then I heard her voice shift. Oh, Aaron, how are you? Is everything okay? I nearly laughed at the absurdity of that question. Not exactly, but I need to talk to you about Kelly. There was a moment of silence, and I could practically hear her trying to figure out what was coming. What about her? It's about the affair, I said, the words hitting like a slap. She's been seeing someone else. I have proof. I have the messages, the photos, everything. Wait, she said, her voice shifting to confusion. What do you mean? Are you, are you sure about this? I clenched my jaw, my grip tightening around the phone. I'm more than sure. I've seen everything. She's been lying to you, to everyone, and I think you deserve to know the truth. I could feel her wavering on the other end of the line. But, but Kelly would never. Look, I know this is hard to hear, but I'm not going to pretend anymore. I don't care how hard it is for you to accept. I need you to know what's been happening behind your back. The silence that followed felt heavier than the weight of the world on my shoulders. It lasted longer than I expected, and when she finally spoke again, her voice was small, almost defeated. I I don't know what to say. I know, I said, my voice softer now. I'm not asking you to say anything, but I am asking you to think about the kind of person she's become, because she's destroying everything, and I can't keep living in this lie. Her mother didn't respond immediately. Instead, there was a muffled sound of something shifting, perhaps her hand over her mouth, stifling her emotions. I'll talk to her, she finally said, her voice tight. Thank you for telling me. I didn't say anything else. I just hung up. The next step was more complicated. I knew I couldn't just sit on the sidelines, letting her go about her life like nothing happened. So I went to the people who mattered, our friends, our mutual circle. They deserved the truth too. I began with a few close friends. I texted them. I didn't leave any room for doubt. The messages went out, one by one. Each one hit harder than the last. I'm not sure how to say this, but Kelly's been having an affair. I don't know if you're aware, but I can't keep pretending everything's fine anymore. I wasn't even sure what I expected. Maybe anger, maybe sympathy. But instead, one by one, I received responses from people who were just as shocked, just as devastated. One friend texted back immediately, I had no idea. I'm so sorry, man. I had no idea. And then came the final step, the confrontation with Kelly. I had already told the people who needed to know, and now it was time to make her see the weight of her actions. I wasn't going to yell, wasn't going to beg. I didn't need to. She already knew what she had done. Now, I just needed to make her face it. That evening, I waited until she came home. She walked in, as usual, not even acknowledging me. She passed right by me, heading toward the bedroom, but I was already standing in front of the door. She stopped, her back stiffening. Did you tell them? She asked, her voice dripping with something I couldn't quite place. Yeah, I did, I said, my voice steady, though I felt the anger rising in me again. I told your mom. I told our friends. Everyone's going to know what you did. Her eyes narrowed, and I could see the guilt in her expression, but she quickly masked it with defiance. You had no right to do that. This is between us, Aaron. Shook my head. No, it's not. It's not just between us anymore. You think you can destroy everything we had and just move on like nothing happened? She crossed her arms, trying to hold her ground, but I could see the cracks beginning to show. You don't understand what I've been going through, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You haven't seen how hard it's been? Hard? I repeated, incredulous. You think it's been hard for you. You're the one who made a choice, Kelly. You chose him, and now you have to deal with the consequences. I saw the flicker of guilt pass through her eyes, but she didn't respond. Instead, she just stood there, staring at me. You think you can just sweep this under the rug and everything will go back to normal? I asked, my voice rising despite myself. It doesn't work like that. You can't just do whatever you want and expect me to forgive you. You can't take back what's been done.